Welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. I am your host, Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. Let's see what the market is saying this morning. Welcome back to Business Daily, and once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Today on the show, we're going to be taking a look at the impact of VAT decentralization. Now, value-added tax, commonly known as VAT, was created and imposed as part of the federal government's effort to diversify Nigeria's revenue base. The consumption tax was introduced into Nigeria's tax system by the value-added tax number 102 of 1993 and took effect in January 94. Now, the consumption tax is designed to allow the federal government to collect 15%, states 50%, and local governments 35%. With the existing arrangement, states and local governments take about 85% of the VAT proceeds. Now, the Nigerian fiscal space has been struggling between some state governments and the federal government on the collection of the value-added tax revenue. Now, this was caused by the demand for equity by larger revenue-generating states like Lagos and Rivers. Now, VAT revenue generation in Nigeria has been largely dominated by the Federal Capital Territory and 2 of the 36 states of the Federation, once again, Lagos and Rivers. Now, these 3 states accounted for 74% of the total generated VAT in the first 8 months of 2021. However, the revenue is collected centrally and shared among the 36 states, leaving most states highly dependent on support from the federal government. Now, joining me to have this conversation is political enthusiast Joseph Ago. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's take a look at the current VAT model that we have right now. What do you think about it?
I think the current system that we have is the type of system that discourages innovation, discourages effort, and of course hard work, and makes it very comfortable for states not to make their general economic environment business friendly. So if you look at the states that are complaining, or the states that are calling for equity or for a review of the current VAT sharing formula, you have Rivers, you have Lagos. In the list of 36 states we have in this country, there are only 3 states that generate more than they collect in allocation. Lagos, Rivers, and Oyo State. So these are the 3 states that are concerned about the current sharing formula. And, you know, a lot of people have made it a South versus North argument. But there are a number of southern states, for example, Edo State gets more than it generates in VAT. Delta State, for example. So you have just 3 states out of 36 states that are putting in work and able to create that very business-friendly and economic environment. And it is showing, you know, VAT is just a measure, a way of measuring general business activities or general economic activities. So you have these states putting so much in making opening their spaces for investment. Then at the end of the month, they come to the table to share, and they get less than what they generate in VAT. So,
okay, go ahead.
So at the end of the day, what is the encouragement for these states to continue the good work that they're already doing? Oyo State, for example, Under COVID-19, Oyo State's internally generated revenue was the highest. I mean, if you look at year on year, the state governor is putting efforts in encouraging businesses to flourish. I mean, he just increased copper salary, I mean, several months. And a lot of coppers are wanting to go to Oyo State, for example. I know this is high caliber human resource. And at the end of the day, a lot of these coppers will find business opportunities in Oyo State and would end up leaving and setting up businesses in Oyo State. So at the end of the day, it will translate to VAT. But when Oyo State comes to the table at the end of the month, it gets less than it generates.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you now this. Are you for or against the decentralization of value-added tax in the country?
I'm for the decentralization of the value-added VAT because I want to see states challenge themselves. For example, Zamfara State. Zamfara contributes the lowest in that VAT pool. But when you look at what Zamfara gets at the end of the month, it's astonishing. Zamfara just generates in the last 8 months about just over 500 million naira in VAT. Was getting several billions in allocation.
So you feel like they're more of a drain than anything?
It's because state governors have found it very comfortable around this sharing formula. That they're not, I mean, in 1999, Zamfara was one of those states that opened up for people to invest in rice farming. Zamfara has potentials for jatropha, gum arabic. Zamfara has gold. But you know, value-added taxes, taxes on value addition. For example, I'm a cotton farmer. I harvest cotton at the end of the day. I sell to somebody. Value is added in that transaction, and that is put into the pool. The man that buys the cotton turns it into yarns and sells it to a textile, is adding value. It goes down the chain. But we see a lot of resources, I mean, from all over Nigeria, leave the country in their raw form. There's no value addition. There is no service activity built around these resources. I mean, look at oil, for example. We don't refine oil. There are not enough industries that are springing up around oil.
And you think that when the system or the VAT model is decentralized, then people or states would be able to do this?
You know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, if people don't know what to do, or are not comfortable with doing right, there are conditions that will push them to admitting and ensuring that they do what is right. And I mean, that is why I'm for decentralization. It will make state governors to wake up and really look at resources within their states, look at what they have very competitive edge in, and ensure that there's the value chain and there's value addition through that value chain. I mean, Lagos State, for example, under Babatunde Fashola, I think, came up with the concept of lake rice. I mean, Lagos does not have land, but Kebbi had a lot of lands, and of course, the governor was already investing so much in rice farming. Lagos State brought money, Kebbi brought lands and manpower, and there was lake rice. That's Lagos and Kebbi rice. At the end of the day, where's lake rice today? I mean, this system is designed to fail. It's designed to keep people just where they are.
That's the centralized system that we have today.
The centralized system, the current sharing formula, that is designed to keep people very comfortable with whatever it is that they're doing. And it's just, it will just take goodwill on the part of state actors to really push for economic, opening up their spaces for economic investment.
All right, so I do understand when you say, okay, fine, there are bigger states who are actually generating a lot of money, and sometimes it can be, it can be looked at in a certain way when you say, okay, I've generated all of this revenue and now I have to share it with everybody else. But then we also have to consider other states, like smaller states that have a lower capacity to generate revenue, that are usually afflicted by things like insecurity. When you take a look at Kaduna, when you take a look at Benue State, when you take a look at Borno State, when you take a look at, all states like that have suffered one form of insecurity or the other that has actually prevented them from moving forward. Now, if you decide to decentralize that, what now happens to those set of people? How does it now affect their own, should I say, revenue within the state?
Insecurity or the general insecurity climate is as a result of government failure. And we cannot give them, for the failure in terms of security, we can't give them a pat on the back. There should be consequences. The problem with Nigeria is that we have
the state government or the federal government?
The state government. Because they allowed this to fester. And at the end of the day, it's showing up in the economic. Kaduna State, for example, before banditry became a big sin, when El-Rufai took office, internally generated revenue was going up. But we see that Kaduna State is something else. Look at train service, how train service was disrupted, the Kaduna Highway. So people should be responsible for whatever it is that happens in their state. And because of one's failure in a particular state, people in other states shouldn't bear the brunt. Because what we're witnessing is, because of that, those insecurity, we're having the shrinking of that VAT pool. And with the current arrangement, it means that Lagos State is set to even get less, let's say, by the turn of the year, if care is not taken. So
and they're one of the biggest generators.
So my take is that for every action, there should be consequence. And those consequences must be well registered so that people can wake up. If you are not comfortable with how your state is being run, you should seek redress through the electoral process and get somebody that's competent enough to. Oyo State was at risk of getting into that list of states that were insecure states. When that trader, that market, the several markets conflicts. But the state governor was able to manage and douse those tensions. And today, Oyo is one of those major investment places. So, if a state governor decides to set the state on fire, there should be consequence. And it should trickle down to the point where the electorate will decide to seek redress through the electoral process.
All right. So I'm still, should I say, not sticking to my guns per se, but still on this. If the VAT is now decentralized, that actually gives every single state, correct me if I'm wrong, that actually gives all states the power to actually set how much VAT they're going to be collecting. Right now, we work on a 7.5% VAT. Yeah. Meaning that if you decide to decentralize it, maybe states like Plateau State, once again the smaller states who have a lower capacity to generate revenue, may end up taxing up to 10% on the people. So they are the ones. Even if when you look at it, the VAT itself, at the end of the day, the person who actually bears the brunt of the VAT is the final consumer. Exactly.
The VAT is designed to ensure that at the end of the day, it's the final consumer that bears the brunt. But take America, for example. America is like Nigeria, several states, and several governors. You have a state like Florida. Florida is a tax haven. So the meaning is people would rather go to Florida to set up business. So not Georgia. I'm sorry, Georgia, as a tax haven. People would rather go to Georgia to set up business. For example, Tyler Perry, he opened a studio in Georgia. Why didn't he go to open it in Hollywood? Because the taxation in California is very, very high. They increased taxation just this year, and there are plans to increase it next year. So people are moving to other states that have lower taxes. And what you have is, if you reduce, let's say the national average is 7.5%. If you reduce your taxation to 4%, I mean, what you're doing is that you're creating that attractiveness. Then if there is that cumulative rate of economic activity, I mean, just compare having one person pay you 7.5%, then 5 people pay 7.5%.
No, but is it really fair to compare a country like Nigeria, which, by the way, once again, is still plagued by insecurity? We have infrastructural issues, we have political issues. Is it really fair for you to compare it to a country like the US, who actually functions on a better economy than we actually do?
I mean, like insecurity is a problem in California also. I mean, you have businesses that have been looted, and when the looters go into those businesses, what do they get? They get a slap on the wrist. You know, there was this bail fund that was instituted in California. Somebody commits crime of looting. I mean, there's money that will pay for his bail. So there's that encouragement to even do more. So businesses are moving from California and are going to places where the governors or the government is tough on crime. So if...
Okay, so where in Nigeria is...
So, I mean, like Lagos is not exactly safe. We have hoodlums in Lagos, for example. So, but fundamentally, I mean, if a state, let's say like an Oyo state or an Ogun state, very close to Lagos, decides to go a notch higher than what Sanwo-Olu is doing in Lagos State, businesses will move in droves to those places.
Yeah, but then a state like Lagos can't actually afford to drop their own VAT percentage to that 5% or that 4%, because they have a larger amount of people that are within their place, and it's already known as a business hub. But when you take it down to the smaller spaces that are struggling themselves, how do you now create that attractiveness to other businesses, both local and foreign?
I mean, like I said, is basic. Security is a very, very strong indicator there. Another indicator is general business support. Another indicator is infrastructure. Like Lagos is big. I mean, when it comes, I mean, they collect the largest VAT, but you can't compare to how much they generate. But Lagos is experiencing also what I call infrastructure decay.
Okay.
I mean, the roads are bad. The buildings are collapsing.
Traffic is...
I mean, traffic is a serious problem. So Lagos needs much more than it is getting in VAT allocation, because they have a massive pressure on infrastructure, and they need those monies to be able to take on urban renewal efforts. Build more infrastructure, whether it's hospitals, roads, and so on and so forth. So Lagos needs more than what it is getting. So Lagos is not being treated fairly, in all honesty, because, I mean, look at the population, look at that pressure. And, you know, I wanted to even make a comment. You know, the VAT sharing formula is predicated on a tripod: equality, population, and derivation. Now, in those three indicators, the only accurate indicator that I see is derivation. Derivation simply means is, out of that 50% that goes to states, how much of that 50% did benchmark Lagos's the VAT generation of Lagos is benchmark on that 50%. Then out of that 50, how much of that 50% will go to Lagos? Now the other two are flawed because, number one, population. We have not conducted a population census since 2005.
Okay.
So we're using an outdated population document to share. Then equality. Now you now say equality simply means there are 36 states at the FCT. We're sharing these state to state. So it's just simple mathematics. This figure divided by 36 states. Then each state will get. But equality, so that's very deeply flawed because a larger percentage of that 50% is benchmarked on the principle of equality. Then the lowest is actually benchmarked on derivation. Then population gets 30%, which is a problem, seeing we have not had any population census since 2005.
All right, so if VAT is decentralized now, we do have to discuss it. I mean, it's impossible for us to have this discussion and not think about the federal government itself. Do they stand to make more or less if it is decentralized?
I remember we had a very hot argument at home about this VAT. My brother was for still keeping it centralized, and I was for decentralization. Now, this is my own opinion. The federal government should mind VAT around our borders, entry points. They should also administer VAT in interstate trade, because you don't leave it to states. The states will need an independent adjudicator to really know what these states will get. But VAT on business activities in states should be collected by states. And I go further to say, the president signed financial autonomy for local governments. Local governments too should be empowered to collect VAT at their local government.
Okay.
So, but when the president signed that financial autonomy for local governments, the states governors were shouting, because basically the state governors collect monies and they give whatever they will. They collect the share that belongs to the local government and they give whatever they will to the local government. So it's very important that states take on the responsibility of collecting in their states. And once that is done, it will create employment, because collection, you need people to go collect. FRS is one of federal agencies that has a lot of investments in real estate, because the VAT pool is increasing every day. So states will be empowered to take on new and innovative policies regarding collection. They would also employ more people. There are graduates all over the place. Employ more people. And also, when they see that the numbers are low, they would be challenged to ensure that their general economic environment is friendly for investors.
All right. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time. We do have to end the discussion here. But yes, I am for the idea that, yes, you should decentralize VAT. I do believe that, actually. But it should be in a progressive manner, not something that is pulled out so suddenly that every other state that does not have the capacity to generate revenue ends up suffering. Anyway, we have come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph, for being a part of the show. And to all our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Do remember that you can follow us on all our social media platforms. Just look us up on Trust TV News on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You definitely find us there. Once again, my name is Chamunda Beng. Come back again for more Business Daily. Let's talk numbers.